Hello everyone. My name is Petr Kruty. I am a product owner for APM, specifically for the Team Center part. And I'm here with my colleague Andreas Reis. So before we start, maybe I would ask how many of you have API Gateway? Okay, and how many of you have APM? All right, that's fantastic, thank you. I'm sorry? And connecting both, yeah, we'll see. So today we will talk about a number of things, and first of all, we'll talk about the landscape of the APIs and how does that look today and where it is going. Then we will talk about some use cases and problems which we can encounter when you are using APIs. Then some examples, and at the end, hopefully, we'll have a demo. You've seen that we are setting it up, so hopefully we'll have some time for that. And of course, some time for questions and answers. So when you look at the landscape of API economy today, how does it look like? Then you see analysts and you see media talking about APIs being more and more important. And for example, Gartner is predicting that already next year, over 50% of the business-to-business communication will happen over API. Forrester is talking about investment of Forrester is talking about investment of in billions and billions of into API next 5 years. So there is a lot of buzz and there is a lot of discussion around merging APIs. Now, what is the consequence of all of this is that all of these APIs, and particularly web APIs, they are driving new revenue models. They are driving new revenue streams. And this is demonstrated by, for example, Salesforce or eBay. They're saying that over than half of their revenue is derived through the APIs. We have a new API provided by the new companies like GitHub or Slack, which are driving new business models. And it's easier and easier using the APIs. Now, this comes with a little cost. And the fact that we are using more APIs means that we are introducing new parts of our infrastructure which are critical and which can be fragile. And if you consider that there is over 10,000 APIs, public APIs, and there are thousands and thousands APIs which are not public and used between businesses, if you consider that over 50% of the business-to-business communication already next year should be over APIs, then the APIs are critical and the APIs are fragile. So the thing is, there were a few years ago, I think it was 7 or 8 years ago, it was published by Amazon that just the drop of 100 milliseconds, you probably heard about that, has impact on their sales, and it's over 1% of their sales. Google, for example, they published the study when they found that just the half-second increase in the result in the search page display, it has impact on 20% of drop in the traffic. So this clearly sees that the delay and any performance issues in APIs, they propagate further and they have impact on business. So there are a few aspects which we need to make sure. Before I move on, there's another thing which I just read that 2 months ago, Google announced the acquisition of the APG. Have you heard of that? Yeah, it was 625 million, if I remember correctly. What is another proof that the API economy and the API market is growing in significance. So some of these hidden killers, as we in CA call them, are front-end latency, back-end performance problems, throughput or response problems. And now these are some of those which affect through the API gateway, have an impact on your infrastructure, on the performance of your services. And we see that, and we see that the clear demand from our customers and from users of API gateway and also APM to provide some kind of solution to this. So, yeah? Yeah.
what essentially is the life creator? Is it an automated way to create an API and put it in a repository? Does the same thing as a Swagger or a YAML file which you do manually?
You mean CA Life API Creator? That's what you're asking about? Andros, do you have an answer to that? Yeah.
So, yeah, CA Live API Create. It's basically a tool to create APIs very quickly and efficiently that are scalable, have security built in from databases. So any data source you have and runs to the database, you can use this tool to create APIs very quickly.
Okay, thank you. So it's a tool, just to repeat it on the microphone, it's a tool to create efficiently and automatically APIs using the database.
Yes.
Okay, from the database. Okay. Okay.
So is it like, is it meant for the dev community or more for the business community as to what they would want to see? Who is the audience for this? Is it business or is it dev or is it both?
Yeah, actually, it can be both. So the nice thing about it is that it's good for business people because if they're a certain power user, there's a technical proficiency, they can create the APIs themselves. And of course, for developers as well, there's a lot of flexibility built into the system.
Thank you. So that's what we've seen in CA, and so the fact that we have an API gateway, that's useful on its own. Of course, it will provide you metrics which are specific for API. It will provide you insights into your gateway. On the other hand, when you have APM only, then you got a lot of performance data. You got a power of the analytical tools in the APM. But on the other hand, you lack the detail on the focus and insight into API. You don't have it in APM. When you just have the APM API gateway, then on the other hand, you lack the context for the metrics, for the matrices in the API, and you lack also the insight. So it's really the combination of those two which is necessary, which will solve some of the problems which we discussed previously. Yep. Yeah. We are combining, or not combining, but we are providing integration between these two. We already had it kind of in the existing release. So the release which is currently GA, that will provide you metrics from API Gateway, and you have them for the front and back end and so on in the APM. Now we are coming with a new release. I believe end of this year, if I remember correctly. And there we provide even more metrics, and also there we have transaction traces, which will end-to-end give you the visibility into your business transactions.
Take API call and visualize it through the API Gateway monitor all the way to the full traversing path across your full business transaction.
Yeah, that's the goal, like ultimate goal for CA, and that's not regarding the API Gateway. That's related to APM, that's related to our app experience analytics and other products, is to give you the end-to-end visibility. So when you combine all of these, you will have that, right? Because you will have the information from one end of the user browser until the back-end database.
And is that available as a dashboard, or is that what?
Yeah, I'll come to that, but you have all good questions. So there are dashboards available, so let's come to that. Yeah. So one of the examples of the problem is that, for example, when your operations team is monitoring the gateway, then the API gateway itself will give you the metrics, but it will give you the information about the decreased latency, the response time, or increased response time, or any degradation only when it already happened. So there is no easy way to have an alert, for example, to see that there is increased latency on a gateway and to proactively act on that. Another example, maybe when you have an app support team which has APM but doesn't have an API gateway integrated, then they might have an information that their shipping microservice or recommendation microservice is affected, but because they don't have this insight into API gateway, then they might attribute it to the proxy or to the firewall or somewhere else. Yeah. And last example is again that there might be, in combination with the API gateway, there may be a problem in the backend which may be propagated But again, because you don't have this context, thanks to integration, it's difficult to see that. And you might see that in one tool, you may see something else in the other tool, but you don't understand the whole context. So to address that, therefore, we have this integration, which we already mentioned, and it will have a number of benefits. So to answer your question, yes, we'll have out-of-the-box dashboards. I have a screenshot. We'll also have hopefully some demo where it will be visible. So out of the box, there is a dashboard which will give you information from the API gateway in APM. You will have obviously benefit from APM monitoring of the latencies, routing, and compliance. That's also all available in APM. You can use the power of the differential analysis from APM in using the API data. And of course, you can create your own customized dashboards, focus on specific APIs, focus on specific metrics as you need.
So you deploy both of them on the same DMZ, or they can be across different DMZs?
Michael, do you want to answer that? What are the options?
Yeah, I mean, actually, it's flexible. Typically, the gateway does get installed in DMZ, but the connection between the two is from an agent that's run on the gateway. So as long as there's an internet connection between the gateway and the API server, you can configure it as well.
Thank you. Okay, so this is coming to the point which we previously discussed, that really our goal is to have for you to end-to-end visibility. So when you look on your environment, then what we are building is that when you have a CA APM, that will give you the information about the applications and the context necessary for the API gateways. The API gateways give you the metrics of the individual APIs, and with the combination with the tools like products like App Experience Analytics, then you will have the complete view, and you can easily then attribute the problems and find out, is the problem in the backend, is the problem in the gateway itself. So one example recently I encountered was that there was one API in a small startup, and there were two types of, it was similar data sent through one part of the system to another through the API and through the gateway. And now there was a very strange behavior that one path for the data was always very slow, and the other one was, as expected, fast. And when we dig into it, we found that the API gateway was smart, and it was encapsulating data in a JSON. So the one part of the system expected data encapsulated in JSON. If you didn't pass it already in JSON, the gateway was smart enough to do it for you, but at the cost. So that cost was the latency. And that was discovered only after long troubleshooting, because it was not visible right away that there is this happening. And the gateway was just too smart.
So was this use case which you described, was it internal or?
It was not internal, it was a small startup, but not in CA.
So between those two applications,
Uh-huh.
whether they were internal to that startup or was one external partner?
One was the external partner. I believe it was the Amazon Cloud and some services in the Amazon Cloud provided by the vendor, and then was the internal on-prem part of that application.
Then it becomes very hard to
Yeah.
decipher what's going on.
Yeah, if you don't have the direct access to all of the parts. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So here you can see the example of the out-of-the-box dashboard. So for this one, you see the front-end service latencies, you see the back-end service latencies, you see the success counts, policy violations, or routing failures. And this is out-of-the-box provided as part of this integration. You can obviously drill down, so that's the benefit of that integration. You can drill down into metrics and into details. Here you see the example of the differential analysis, and so there are a few examples which we already seen. One by global logistic leader. They use the integration for pre-production API testing. There's another large travel company which use it for their dedicated troubleshooting team, which is focused on triage of what they see in the environment and the troubleshooting. The last example is from another company, another user of both gateway and APM, when they use API management and its integration for governance of APIs in general. You want to make a picture? Yeah. So just to give you an idea, this is what I was talking at the beginning. So current GA version of the gateway provides you with the basic statistic based on basic metrics. So we have a front-end latency, back-end latency, success, failures, violations. You have the out-of-the-box dashboard. So now the planned version, which is about to GA end of this year, and I will probably highlight two things. It will have more statistics and most importantly, transaction traces. So we'll able to correlate all parts and to give you the full end-to-end visibility. And for future, we are planning, of course, several things, but we already know that one of the things which we are looking at is to provide integration with the app experience analytics and then support synthetic transactions, which would hopefully give us more insights into the performance.
In CAPM, can you do log aggregation across your app servers, database servers, networks, and others? Or is it runs more as an agent and it will only monitor your business transactions? So say that, I'm just throwing a scenario. So there is a CBAT1 which I get, and now this is what happens in the right? The support team will get the ticket, and then they will start looking at the logs. Even though they'll have this APM tool, one of the things which they highlight is, hey, we see the database service logs, everything looks fine,
Mm-hmm.
and that ticket gets shifted to the next queue, app empty. They will do their, the app server logs looks are fine, we don't see an issue there. So essentially, even you are monitoring, but things go wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even though whatever level of monitoring you set, when things go wrong, you have to figure it out. So
Mm-hmm.
does this allow you to take your logs, all the points where you are monitoring it, right? So web server, app server, whatever level of clusters you have,
Mm-hmm.
take those logs and establish correlation. The way you're trying to establish monitor the whole transaction, take that app server log and then correlate with your database server log, and then if you really see nothing, then you know for a fact that this transaction was not occurring. So then you start looking.
So we are doing this automatically. We have an APM 10.5 now, a feature which is called assisted triage. We identify the business transactions, we accumulate problems, collect the evidences on a complete transaction path, and even the root cause analysis telling you which is most likely a culprit, including all problems happening on the path, it's already automated in the APM solution. So the API is only one part of the whole transaction, but all features you have in APM with analytics, with summarizing, alerting, it's fully integrated into APM.
My question was a little bit different. I was thinking more in the actual logs. So I know you have automated, but say, and just, so typically you'll have different sets of team while you're looking at the problem, right?
Right. So the next point is for the 8A solution, another solution, we also have log reader, a log information. It's not yet in the current 10.5, but in future releases we are planning to integrate even log output as evidences in assisted triage.
Exactly. So then that will make it. Can I answer that question? So APM doesn't provide logs to start with instrumentation. I know. So key in there, and if we change like sort of correlation, you can correlate based on whatever you.
As I said, we are working on also integrating log files. These log files, based on timestamp, we can assign them to a component on a transaction path and can feed them in as evidences in assisted triage.
Yeah, because that would be very helpful. What I have seen is, to your point, you're right. What I've seen is that typically we use something like a Splunk, where you take all those logs, put it in Splunk, and then tie it back to this. So I think, and that doesn't work. I mean, even that is faulty. And I've seen ops teams struggling, even they have Splunk and not APM, but they have App Dynamics, and then they were doing log aggregation through Splunk and doing business monitoring through App Dynamics. I still have a problem.
You only need the right solution and then it will work.
No, no, no. That's why we're here. Thank you. Anyhow, we're at the end, so I will just summarize. So as we know, as we've seen, then the application or the economy of the APIs is growing and will become more and more important. And to address that, because we recognize it as a CA, and as a part of our effort to build the end-to-end visibility, we are introducing this integration. We are continuously working on it. So integration between the API Gateway and APM will, in the new version, bring the transaction traces and more metrics. And obviously, we are going to continue work on it. So now, if you want any questions, there is a time to discuss anything.
I have a question. You were talking about the object discovery, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk in a dynamic environment. We're going to expand and shrink, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do we differentiate what is false positive, what is right? It all goes by the performance, or there's no user impact, so we call it like it's good, or how do we really differentiate that part?
So I try to rephrase it. So for example, when you have a large environment, usually you would have thousands and thousands of alerts, and most of them are probably not important and interesting, and they are kind of false positives, right? That's what you are referring to. Mm-hmm. So yeah, well, you can come to demo, and do you want?
Like there is no standard way to supply. That's the problem. It's more around classifying your errors. There's no set thing that you can do the same work. Keep on classifying your alerts and then accordingly keep on changing or optimizing your thresholds.
So we are a little bit smarter on that part. We can identify when a problem occurs and end users are affected. So this is now an APM 10.5. These are experiences, meaning each of these nodes represents transactions facing an end user. Now I can click into, for example, one element, and I can drill down into individual components. Okay, we don't have traffic on this one right now.
You want to talk about assisted triage?
Yeah.
Okay.
So here, for example, we can see on this stack, this could be an API front end, for example. We have 371,000 transactions. We can see the time for them, slow or fail, whether we have errors in this transaction path, slow in case we have alerts based on response time configured. And once there is a problem in the system, I talked earlier about assisted triage, where we can tie complete problems and multiple errors to a transaction path. So here, for example, now I can see transactions with the API gateway. And at the moment, I don't have any errors in the system. But in case I would have errors, it would be summarized. I would see on the right side all the evidences. And that's the whole APM concept. If you are interested more about assisted triage, how it works, we also have a booth. We had some sessions. All these events are now aggregated. We have an engine running on the path, which we call assisted triage engine, and show the root cause of the problem.
So maybe I'll quickly answer that question. So what we do with assisted triage, just in a few sentences, is that obviously you have these thousands of alerts, and most of them are not interesting, not important. So what we do is that assisted triage is tracking all of them. And if they are propagating, meaning there is a neighbor component which also starts to have a problem, we link them together and we build a kind of story around it. And as it propagates, we still track it. And that's what we call anomalies. So we track all of this noise for you, and we call it anomalies. But as soon as it will start to impact the end user, and we know what are the entry points to your environment, so as soon as we will see the propagation until that point, we create a problem out of it. So this is a healthy environment, so you can't see an example, but you will see the example of anomalies and problems there. Now the problems are that's what you want to solve, because that's affecting your users. And assisted triage would not only tell you that there is a problem, but it will also point with a finger. And why it is beautiful is that normally what happens is that when your users see the slowness, they will tell you like it's slow. Now you have that problem, like what is slow? What does it mean? Where it is? So you need to troubleshoot and find the problem. But because we are looking from the other side and we see those problems emerging, we know where they are coming from because we can link the culprit to their entry point. So we can immediately point a finger. So the assisted triage would tell you the problem is in this component, and we know about it from the beginning. And you can immediately look at that. You can see how it impacts the other components because you would see it in the map. You would see the evidences, so all of the alerts in the problem. And you can immediately do something about it. You would normally have an owner, maybe imported from CMDB or from other system. You can track things like attributes, allow you to track, for example, build numbers. So if you have integration with Jenkins, let's say, it can tell you the build number, and you would see in the timeline, which is not visible here, it's on the top of the page, you would see that there is a change in build number, and you go, oh, okay, increased timeline, increased response time, and at the same time there is a change in the build number. It's probably that build, so I revert the build, and that's probably the solution. And so the whole idea of the assisted triage, and one thing is that assisted triage is exactly the type of feature which will be never done. And the reason is that we are going to continuously improve it and make it smarter and smarter. And the goal is to track all of that noise for you and just point a finger to the real problems when they become where it starts to affect your end users.
So, from the isolation standpoint, you think I'm from financial industry, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So during market open and close, I want to bring up things dynamically. What I mean by that is I want to spin up some more nodes.
Mm-hmm.
And when things are fine, I want to
Mm-hmm.
shrink it.
Yeah.
Right? So now today what the challenge is things come up fine, everything is cool.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to bring them,
Mm-hmm.
although it is called as a safe shutdown,
Mm-hmm.
still it looks red on the console, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the operation team is like taking out people and all those things.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm asking is there a way that you can say that, okay, this is an event that is something that is known because
Mm-hmm.
the traffic is low now, so
Mhm.
that we are
Mhm.
shrinking the environment,
Mm-hmm.
especially in in a dynamic way, spinning up another gateway to
Mhm.
support the incoming traffic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So in that case, how do you really measure it? How
Mhm.
do you identify
Mm-hmm.
what is false, positive?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So can you explain why it is red? Because you've configured alerts?
Yeah, normally like, let's say I have 5 nodes or 5 gateways, right? So I'm monitoring it, and now I'm bringing up the 6th one dynamically, right? So now the traffic and everything is coming in. After a while, I think that okay, the 6th one is not required, so I bring it down,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's down.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got to be red now, right?
We don't, if in case you want to enable availability monitoring, you can make it red, yes, but for this transactional monitoring, you don't have to put in saying a special alert in the APM solution saying it's red. So in case you shut it down, it would simply disappear, it won't show up as a problem. You don't have to use this alert, and I would even recommend not using it. What you can see here in the blue shading on the response time where I have my cursor. In the past, it was very painful because you had to configure alerts, for example. This is one of the functionalities of APM. It's called differential analysis. What you see in the blue shading is we calculate automatically based on formulas what response time we expect and whether we are now running out of this, and we can do alerting, error analysis, and even getting deep evidences also based on spikes, for example, on the system. But availability alerts, you can put them on a dashboard, for example. You can say only one traffic light up or down, and you can tell there is a box on the APM configuration, propagate to team center, and if you uncheck it, it won't make you any trouble on the map, it won't make you any trouble on this whole concept of assisted triage.
Mm.
So you can use both without any noise.
So the problem which differential analysis is solving for you is that when you spin up a new instance, then you don't have to set up an explicitly an alert for it and look for a baseline, because we already have a much smarter solution for you. And you can think about the assisted triage like the standard deviations of for variance, right? Yeah, exactly. So it's not a fixed value, but it's watching the value, and over time, and you need to run it for a while so it learns what is see what is normal. It has some sliding window, and then it can tell what if the value is really too out of the standard, like 2 standard deviations or something like that. And it's not exactly it, but it's very similar. And therefore, it's much smarter than the setup, your manual baseline. So that's actually good for thing. Yeah.
I had a question around your assisted triage. So this you do it for, so you correlate those alerts for all events, right? So whenever you see there are 2 alerts which are in some way happening simultaneously or one by one in sequence, you will try to join them and then start to the differential analysis. Then you will start basically trying to instrument them, right? Or try to
No differential analysis is only one type of evidences.
Okay.
We have differential analysis, so it's spiking, it's out of normal, one type evidence. Another type of evidence is, for example, a traditional alert configured thresholds.
Okay.
The third type of evidence are what we call error events, meaning exceptions in the application, for example, SQL exception, database exceptions. I'm not 100% sure at this point whether we also report error events out of the API. Have to validate it. But in case we do, and I think I've seen it on our plans, then also this one. So we have these 3 type of events coming in, running through the engine, and correlating it by component, by time. And on top of it, we have so-called analysts running, where we say, based on topology, based on times, based on behavior, where we say we can even tell you this is the root cause for the problem. And the fact that the API has a high response time, it's based because of a database call.
So that analytics engine, which is a part of the APM, or you have to put some other component on top of it?
That's part of APM.
APM, okay.
It's version 10.5.
So the scenario which I had was, so do you, when you start through that assisted triage, so do you take that and that snapshot? So if this is happening at say 2:10 or start of the business on a Monday morning, as you were saying, financial services. So you have put something on Friday evening into production. Monday morning business starts. You see some this thing, but and then so do you take that snapshot and put it so that the ops team can later in the day, because by the time it becomes an issue and it goes to the system, to the actual ops guys, probably essentially what I'm saying is, do you store that snapshots, or is it just like an event in time?
So what we do is...
I'm not sure I'm clear in my...
No, I fully understand. You do a change, but there is no traffic. Next morning when the traffic comes, it breaks, right? This map is not static. It's dynamically created based on the traffic. And we have markers on the timeline. I don't have it in this scenario right now, but you can even see every single change in the system. So now this is what we call notebook. You have all evidences, problems in one view, and on the timeline on the top, together with these evidences, you can see topological changes and attribute changes. So now when I go back in time, can you see this?
Yep. Okay.
I can click now on this component. At this time when the problem happened,
What was the snapshot?
and you can see there is now a new link in the system, it's a topology change, and you have it together with all the evidences. So you have the full, how can I say, proof, everything in one view, and you even have a shareable
All
link.
the inputs for your root cause.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure. Essentially, this is what I'm looking at.
It's powerful.
Yeah. Because what the thing happens is, by the time it goes, there is an issue and it goes to the ops person, and they log in and they say, "Hey, everything looks fine. The queues are all the queues are all good."
It's even
Then,
better.
Mm-hmm.
then we get into the same dialogue of, okay, let's go through the log. This is
Yeah.
all looking fine. So if you,
Mm-hmm.
my question was, if you are putting this, that okay, when this happened, 9 o'clock in the morning, this was the snapshot was around 9:01,
Mm-hmm.
and then they can
Yeah.
use this. And my question was,
Zoom. I mean, it's a huge concept, and we had at CA World also some sessions dedicated to assisted triage. There's also one booth about assisted triage. I don't know the number, but in the APM space. So in case you're interested,
Sure.
really happy to follow up with you on this. Good. I think we are way over time.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, but we'll still be here. So we finished, but you can find us here and answer any questions. So thank you.
This is available in your which version?
Assisted triage is version